Hey guys, what's going on? It's Ben here. I'm back again today doing another video. And the subject of today's video is going to be a redraft of the 2008 NBA draft. I did one already for 2007, and I'm going to continue with doing them up until more modern years of the draft. So this session is 2008. I think it's interesting to go back and look at who teams would have picked and how the draft would have worked out if we would know what we know now. So for each team, I'll be going through and making a selection based on sort of like the modern NBA and basically what we know now. And yeah, I'm gonna go from there. So number one, Chicago. It's gonna sound weird, but I think they actually still go with Derrick Rose. He gave them an MVP season. He was Rookie of the Year. Basically, he gave them from 2008 to 2012 four stellar seasons. Then he gave them like um two okay seasons from 14 to 16, but I just think between being the hometown kid, winning an MVP, winning Rookie of the Year, he still goes number one overall. They still needed a good point guard, so I think they still go with him. Yeah, and that's all I have to say about that one. I think it's pretty clear cut to me. Okay, let's see here. Number two, Miami originally took Michael Beasley because they thought that they needed um, they thought that they needed big time scorer, and he had done fantastic in college, and he had, I think, scored like 25 points per game in college. Um, but for me, I think it makes sense for them to pick Westbrook here. Um, they didn't really have a point guard to pair with Wade at this point because Gary Payton had retired and Jason Williams was gone. So I think later in this draft they actually took Mario Chalmers. I think actually maybe in the second round. So I think that point guard was the area of need, so Westbrook makes sense for them. And then you have a great backcourt that features Wade and Westbrook. Um, Number three, Minnesota. They actually originally drafted OJ Mayo at this spot and then traded him to Memphis for Kevin Love. But I think they just basically circumvent the trade here and just go for Kevin Love. Um, they had Al Jefferson, they had Corey Brewer. They were looking for a power forward, and I think that's exactly what they get in drafting Kevin Love. Not much more to that one. I think it basically makes plenty of sense why they would need him. Um, Number four, Oklahoma City. So originally here they took Westbrook, but now he's gone. You actually have a lot of good options in this draft as far as big guys. You've got former All Stars in Brook Lopez, DeAndre Jordan, Roy Hibbert, Serge Ibaka, not an All Star, but kind of like a borderline All Star. Ryan Anderson, former Most Improved Player of the Year, guy who used to be able to give you 19 points per game. Let's see though. I think at this spot, they had Durant at this point. They really had nothing else where a guy in the draft wouldn't be able to replace him. But I think their next best option would have been Brook Lopez to me. Nowadays we think of him as like a weird and for some reason there's a glitch that it won't show him here or it won't show the Nets pick here, but um, there's some weird thing where we now think of Brook Lopez as basically a tall Kyle Korver who scores 10 points a game, but we don't remember that from like 2008 to 2017 he was like pretty much good for about 18 points per game and like 8 rebounds a game, and he was like a great low post scorer. And I think he'd pair pretty well with Durant as far as like being a good second option on this team. So I am going to go with Brook Lopez to the Oklahoma City Thunder. Memphis at 5, they had Rudy Gobert, or no, excuse me, Rudy Gay. I don't know what I was thinking. They had just traded Gasol for his brother Mark Gasol. They really didn't have many good players on the team at this point, and um, I think Andre Drummond, or excuse me, DeAndre Jordan. What am I thinking here? DeAndre Jordan, I think, would be a really good pick for them. Be a really solid center. Um, you could actually, I think, play Marc Gasol effectively as power forward, but he hadn't come over to the league yet. I think at this point you really just had Rudy Gay as like the main dude on this team, and basically like a young Kyle Lowry who was like playing like 10 minutes a night, and I can't even remember who their actual point guard was, but I think DeAndre Jordan is the next best option for them. The Knicks had at this point just gotten um, Zach Randolph like a season before. They had Al Harrington too at this point. I believe they oh no, they had Jamal Crawford at this point. Um, Jamal Crawford and Zach Randolph. I think they still go with Danilo Gallinari here. I think he's still the right pick for them. A good guy on the wing who can get quite a few buckets, and basically for the entirety of his career has been good for at least 15 points, if not more, per game. Good shooting ability and all that, so I think it makes sense for them to continue to go with him. And actually, it sounds goofy, but I think Eric Gordon makes a lot of sense for the Clippers too, even though he was already their pick. Um, I think it makes sense for them to go with him. He's a really good scorer who's good for like 16 a game off the bench. Can play him like 25 minutes a night and he can still get those numbers, or you could play him like 35 minutes a night and he can get like 20 something points per game. But I think he's really best in that like 25 to 30 minutes a night, scoring you 16 points per game kind of a role. Okay, let's see here. Next, we have Milwaukee, who at this time had as their core like Michael Redd and Andrew Bogut still, and they had just traded Mo Williams, and so I think their really key areas of need were like power forward, small forward, and point guard. And I think considering all of that, probably because they have Bogut, you're not going to go with Hibbert or McGee. I think like the people I'm looking at here are like George Hill, um, or Michael Beasley or Ibaka. I think of those three though, I'm going to go with George Hill just because that fits a need for them pretty well. Um, they didn't really have much of a floor general at this point, so I think George Hill makes a lot of sense. The Bobcats, they had just traded away Jason Richardson to, well, actually, this season they would trade away Jason Richardson to the Suns. Um, at this point, they had him, Gerald Wallace, as their wing guys. They had Emeka Okafor at center. So what they really needed was a power forward or a point guard. And so I'm going to say that although it seems weird that he's still going this high in this draft, I think I'm actually going to say that they go with Michael Beasley. I think he's a really solid scoring option for them, and he can give this team 15 to 16 points per night. And maybe it's just a thing where like because he was in such weird situations when he was like a young player, like he basically was traded away from the Heat after his sophomore year because they said like, "Hey, we're going in a different direction. We really don't need you." And then he got shipped off to Minnesota, which was like the the NBA equivalent of Siberia. So he probably just felt like rejected a lot, or I don't know. I don't know what the reasoning was why he never quite worked out, but he still is like a walking 18 points per game if you're playing him 30 minutes per night. So I'll say Charlotte. He goes there and they just play him a lot of minutes and he starts to succeed. 10 was New Jersey. I think they're still looking for a center, and so I'm going to say that they go with Ibaka. Probably like the most, and it doesn't show up here again, but just know that this is Ibaka. Probably one of the most consistent choices for this team. Like, I thought about Roy Hibbert, but his career just drops off so fast at a point that I don't think that makes sense. Um, they didn't really need a guard at this point because they still had Vince Carter, they still had Richard Jefferson on the wing, they still had a point guard, Devin Harris. What they really needed was a big guy, so I think Serge Ibaka is like the best option at this point, so they go with him. Indiana, let's see here. I'm trying to think of who they originally took at this pick. I think it was, oh man, I can't remember really looking at this list, but Brandon Rush, I believe, but I'm not going to go with Brandon Rush here. They had Danny Granger. They had Troy Murphy at power forward. They had, Mike Dunleavy at shooting guard. So I think they really either need a center or a point guard. And what am I thinking? Roy Hibbert is who they had. So I'm going to take Roy Hibbert with the same pick actually at 11. 12, Sacramento. They originally took Anthony Randolph here, I believe, or maybe that was the Warriors. But at this pick, I'm going to say that they go with OJ Mayo. Pretty good value for the pick that it's at. Considering this guy originally went number 3 overall, I think number 12 is still okay. He played until 2017. His best season, he was putting up like 18 points per game, which is pretty good. He was actually given decent efficiency too. So I think that he's still got some value in the NBA. 13, Portland. They originally took Batum. I'm going to actually say they take him again. Good, wiry, long wing who can play good defense and give you a average offense, like a 3-and-D kind of a player. Golden State originally took Anthony Randolph, but I'm going to say they take Ryan Anderson, the much better player in my opinion. Yeah, I think Ryan Anderson, in his prime, he's like scoring 19 points per game, so that's pretty good. He won Most Improved Player of the Year in 2012, so definitely a guy who gets forgotten now. But he had like probably a 4 or 5 year stretch between Orlando and New Orleans where he was a really good contributing player to a couple of teams that made the playoffs. And Phoenix last at 15 because I'm only going to go through 15. I believe originally they took Robin Lopez, but I think for them I'm going to go with Pekovic actually, because originally I think Robin Lopez only played for them for like 3 years, and Pekovic had probably the best like prime of any of the guys left because he put up like back-to-back seasons where he was getting around like 16 and 10, or I believe, yeah, 16 and 10. So I think that's really the best like prime season that any of the players left provided. Other options I thought about were Courtney Lee, JaVale McGee, and Mario Chalmers, but I think out of any of those, Nikola Pekovic had the best prime season, so I'm gonna go and stick with Pekovic. So there you have it, guys. There's the redraft. I know, these two being buggy because the site's old is weird, but if you forget, this was Oklahoma City picking Brook Lopez, and this was the New Jersey Nets taking who was it? I had them taking Ibaka. So there you guys go. Hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know your redraft opinions in the comments, and I will see you next time. Bye.